important. I looked in the mirror, I'm different. I finally made a decision. They're not brave like you. They're too scared to do anything is different.
That's a massive amount of burst.
EG played their style, and damn did they look good.
Dignitas is here to play. Dardock with the 1v5 Baron stealing at TSM. 2021 has been the year of Dig.
Give me a roll, I'll break it.
And now Sunday finds the angle. What a knock of them.
100 Thieves looking like they have renewed focus.
And Alfari guarantees the win here for Team Liquid.
From Lane Kingdom to Summoner's Rift domination. Triple kill already for Lost. He wants the fourth. It's going to be no problem. They're going to give him the Penta. Change his name. It's TSM Wondered. Can he get in the way? The flag's going to block it. That was beautiful by Blather, and he does it again.
And they will get first place in the spring split.
This is the Mid-Season Showdown.
Take it!
Hello, everyone, and welcome back for day 2 of the Mid-Season Showdown. I'm excited because we have a pretty big show planned for you all today. LS is going to be joining us a little later on during the LCS Countdown to help us break down that 100 Thieves versus C9 matchup. But before we get there, let's find out who's behind door number 1 of our Analyst Show Showcase. It's none other than Razzleplasm. Oh, and he's brought a friend. He's brought a friend. How about behind door number 2?
I don't have any friends to show.
No friends, but hey,
Just have me.
you came in with a bang right there, Alarm, and I appreciate that. And of course, behind door number 3, it is none other than the. That's right.
Open it.
That's right. The Mark. Hold on.
What?
Hold on a second. There he is. There's my man, Mark Zimmerman. Brought in a big squad of analysts here to help break down the series today. But gents, before we get into the series at hand today, 100 Thieves versus Cloud9. I do want to talk to you guys a little bit about what we saw go down on Summoner's Rift just yesterday. It was a 3-1 victory for Team Liquid over TSM. Mark, coming to you first. What did you think of the series?
I thought it was really interesting. A lot of people have been talking about head-to-head records over the course of the regular season, and this series turned it on its head, flipped it over. You know, it's TSM 2-0 heading into this matchup, but, you know, it's the regular season. It's best of ones. People are trying things. There are different parts of their arcs and their journeys over the course of the regular season, and so I don't think you can really look at them, you know, the rest of playoffs, seeing how this one got flipped around, and there are still some takeaways, like, yeah, we saw Tactical still playing Malphite a little bit, but overall, I think, you know, the team's strengths and weaknesses will be a little different than what you think from what you saw in the regular season.
Yeah, and from this series, we saw that Jensen had a whole nother side to him from the regular season. A lot of people were saying that Jensen even had an off split. Like, where was this aggressive mid laner that we saw in the previous splits? We saw a lot that Jensen was playing as Azir and Orianna. He kind of sat back, he farmed a lot, and he had really good team fights, which is what he needed to do to get to this point in playoffs. But we saw that he was so aggressive. He played really well yesterday. So I think that narrative that Jensen had an off split was just that he was playing these control mages that were made to scale. And now that this is a best of 5, he can switch up his picks. He's not a control mage one-trick pony. He can really put himself into these team fights and play stuff like the Sylas and the Ahri, and he was doing so well on it.
Yeah, that's the adaptation that Team Liquid has really had, because throughout the regular season, like you said, they're a team that wants to get counterpick in their top lane, their bot lane, at times their jungle. And so who's going to be the one that blinds on 1-2? That's going to be Jensen on his control mages. But he's really shown that he can play, they can counterpick for him, and pick comps like these, by the way, because what we saw from them was that they don't need to pick Seraphine. They can let the enemy team take it, go split push against it. Twisted Fate, Gnar, Twisted Fate, any top lane in this respect that gets counter pick split push advantage is really good. So I think this is an opportunity for their future opponents. Take note of that, recognize not to fall into that trap, or if you're giving up, if you're picking the Seraphine, to take care of your top lane and have it as a last pick, so you at least get a top lane advantage there. Those are the things that I'm worried about if you're going up against Team Liquid. But it's nice to see that he has a whole host of picks like the Ahri, the Veigar, if there is a specific comp that he can play it into. And Team Liquid's giving them the ball.
I'm curious, Raz, for you, just how does this force you to reevaluate Team Liquid as a whole and their chances here in the postseason? Because again, with a lot of that experimentation that was happening during the split, people started to almost discount them, it felt like, coming into the playoffs as compared to TSM or Cloud9.
Yeah, I mean, they're the first ones during the regular season to talk about how bad their or spotty their macro had been, and that they were improving it. They were the lock-in champions, and when we saw them play up against TSM, a lot of people thought it was going to be close. Even though I predicted a 3-1, I thought it was going to be close games. In the end, what we saw from Team Liquid was much better control around objectives, much more crisp play on most members on the team. I actually think that this team right now is the team to beat in the mid-season tournament. I think that they're really solid, and now that they are willing to counterpick for mid lane and play a lot of these mages, they seem, assassins as well. I think Team Liquid right now are just that strong.
Well, some people might consider that a lightly warm take there, my friend, as we haven't yet seen the #1 seed play out there in the best of 5 scenario just yet. But as we reflect on yesterday's series, we also know that any good reflection involves checking Reddit. So let's go ahead and look at some Reddit as well as desk overreactions from throughout the spring split. First up, on January 23rd, a Redditor said, Fudge is the best top laner. Not an overreaction, not just in the LCS, but in the West. All right, Alorem, I mean, they say right there in the comment that it's not an overreaction, so is it done and dusted?
Head scratcher for me there. I'm going to have to disagree with my lovely friend on Reddit. I think Fudge has proven that he's better than we initially thought coming from the beginning of the split to now, and that what his role on C9 is pretty important. But to say he's the best top laner in the West is a little bit of a spicy take, and I cannot agree. But, he's good, but not yet the best.
Yeah, we got a few extremes out here. People either want to hate him and throw him in the last place, or we got Freak out here putting him second best in their top lane rankings, or even, at the end of the day, I think, of course, Alphari and Impact deserve the respect as top 2 in the league. And then from that point forward, I would say he's around 4th or 3rd. That one's a difficult call based off of Someday, even Fake God, who's been performing well this split. Fudge is definitely top half, and that's a fact.
All right, slight overreaction on that one. Let's see what we got next. It's Reddit user Blue5647, who says, on February 8th, said, Perks doesn't seem to be much of an upgrade over Nisqy so far. Mark?
I'm going to disagree, with the power of hindsight. Nisqy, I think, worked really well with C9 and their game plan and what it was, but Perks as an individual player is clearly an upgrade. He has dominated the laning phases, something that Nisqy never did. Yeah, he focused on roaming, but Perks is able to roam and still crush lanes. He also has the highest amount of pre-15 solo kills in the league. He crushes people in lane. He, benched Demonte basically with how hard he beat him up. That's something that I don't see Nisqy doing. And so while C9 from spring 2020 was really dominant, the teams are also weaker. It's still an individual upgrade.
I think, just remember, February 8th is when Blue5647 made this take. And I think that the consistency of Nisqy during his split was what I'd valued, playing towards his jungler. Perks, during the regular season, had really spotty play where he was exceptional. And you're right, he had those insane games where he dominated mid lane, or he just had bad lanes, or that Aurelia game, I felt like in the last week was a little hard for him. But at the end of the day, I think the value of Perks is definitely going to become playoff time or international when that does come into play. He does have the high highs.
All right. One last Redditor take to get through. This one on February 13th, so just 5 days later. You can take Bjergsen out of TSM, but Jensen will still run it versus TSM mid laners. Maybe an unfortunate overreaction prior to yesterday's series.
Yes!
Oof.
Hyun, hold that L, please. Hyun L, maybe add a few more. Like, honestly, yeah, Jensen, I think people just slept on him during the regular season because of his position, and then obviously now we're throwing Hyun L into this overreaction after he got player of the series just yesterday.
All right. Well, we got one more overreaction to take a look at, but this one we're stepping away from Reddit for. Our very own Alorum had his own overreaction on FlyQuest earlier this spring. Let's take a look.
Yeah. Now that FlyQuest have all the pieces of the puzzle settled in, I'm convinced that they are only going to scale. I have a lot of faith in Jose Diodo and Palafox that they are just going to get better and better. And while I'm not going to put them top 3, I think it's a safe bet to go maybe 5th or 6th place because they have had some shaky games. And I'd say a big benefit of being on FlyQuest right now is you have a whole lot of new fans coming from Jose Diodo. So that morale behind your back and the fans cheering you on is really just, I think it helps a lot for a player.
Alorum?
Let me hear it, guys. Let me hear it. Get it out of the way. I see Raz over there. He's smirking at me.
Raz is eating a chocolate chip cookie.
I'm just looking at his face.
It tastes even better listening to Alarim.
Okay. Oh, I see.
Okay, so I keep this opinion. I still think that the pieces of the puzzle are there, although I wish they had taken out Diamond for Dreams a little bit earlier. I think that he's much better and that he would fit their team a lot better. I also think that Licorice, if he had played as well as he had on C9, this team would be 5th or 6th place. And I know you guys are sitting there silently judging me for what I said, but I know you guys need a reason to get me on something because, you know, I was the #1 analyst in predictions. So I know you guys had to get me for something. So.
What? All right.
Don't just throw that out there.
No, I like that.
I see your silent judgment.
A little bit
the
of a
power of diversion, by the way. Make a million bad takes, just throw in that good take and you're fine. I see how it is.
Here's the thing.
I had to talk to my straw man over there.
We can settle this a bit today because we'll be doing predictions for the series itself. And I know Raz was spot on with yesterday's take, TL 3-1 over TSM, but we'll see if he can keep that going and how you two ultimately put up a fight in the prediction game. Moving along, though, there are many things that I adore. Good charcuterie, the LCS studio that I can call all my own and all of this space without these guys in it. Of course, my hair dryer, but most of all, I love me some Jeopardash. That's right, we're going back into some LCS trivia, my friends. A quick addendum off the top of the show here. All of the questions are going to be related to the regular split, because if we were to include yesterday's games, that would be an unfair number of games for players on those two teams. So ignore what you saw yesterday in answering these questions. Number 1, tell me, Analyst, what player, by the way, I'm going to be disappointed if you guys don't get these, had the highest damage per minute in spring?
Neo.
Neo's the guess here in the middle for Alorum.
Oh my God.
What are you going with, Mark?
I mean, so I know FBI was highest for 80 carries. I just don't know if there was a mid laner higher than him. I think there might have been. I think it might have been Jizuke, actually.
So are you
Jizuke?
You're going to go Jizuke, and then over here, Raz?
I have to do Neo. I'm going to steal his answer.
So
Can I steal answers?
We've got 2 Neos.
I'm telling you, it's wrong.
Yeah, okay, we got 2 Neos and a Jizuke. Mark, you were closest, and you were right with FBI. You baited yourself. You baited yourself.
I even told Raz it's wrong, and he picks it again. I'm like, I'm telling you, FBI is at top of the 80 carries.
I know. I knew.
No one believed you.
Look, I knew following the All-Pro voting that I knew at least Mark would be very close. It was FBI at 585. Jizuke was 2nd overall at 570.
Oh, yeah, I'm the big idiot, guys. People who can't.
Yes, you are.
All right.
The answers are you're correct or you're wrong.
All right, I'm going to push this on here. All right, second question. Which player had the most assists in the spring split?
Vulcan.
Afro move.
Vulcan, Afro, and
I'm gonna go with Blaze Olive.
He's going to Blaze.
No, that's wrong. That's wrong.
A Blaze Olive?
Destiny. Oh no, don't worry. Destiny.
Raz,
calm down.
Raz, take a breather. Take a breather. Go do some squats. It was Afro Moo.
I don't think Raz watched Spring Split. He was never on the desk. Are we sure he watched Spring Split?
No. I watched. I admit, I misperceived it as kill participation.
Look,
Calm down, relax.
Yeah, I can't.
Okay.
Stay back over there.
All right, okay. I was going to say, I
there.
can't make an excuse for that. It was Afro Moo with 179 assists. The man was pumping them out. Vulcan was second at 176, so not far behind. Question number 3. 4 out of the 5 top gold per minute players were bot laners, and 1 is a mid. Who is that mid laner?
I'm going to lean towards Perks.
Sorry, Alorm, you said Perks as well, right? Or who?
I said it first.
Okay, so Alorm, she doesn't. All right, great. You said it first. You get an extra 0.1 points if you're correct. So we got Perks, and Raz. Who are you going with?
I'm gonna go Soligo because their games are just so there were a lot of kills in those games.
Interesting. All right, it is Perks. You two are correct. Mr. Moneybags himself there in the mid lane was churning out the gold. Easy peasy. All right, we got one final question here. This is an easy layup, so don't screw it up. Which team nabbed the most heralds
done enough
in our 18 regular season games? Most heralds in 18 games.
I'm going to go with Team Liquid because I think they had the strongest top side.
Team
I'm
Liquid?
go with 100 Thieves. I feel like they did a lot of neutral objectives this split.
100 Thieves for Mark and Raz?
Yeah. Team Liquid makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna stop piggybacking off his answers though. I'm gonna go Cloud9.
Cloud9. Raz, you would have done good just to piggyback off those answers. It is Team Liquid.
No!
At 28 Rift Heralds. Mark, you were close. 100 Thieves was second with 24. So they were the next on the list.
I'm the king of seconds.
The king of second, man. Hey, words to live by there from Mark Z. All righty, we're going to step away for a brief moment. When we return, though, we're going to have LS here to help us break down 100 Thieves versus Cloud9. We'll see you here. Hot baited. Now, welcome back to the LCS Countdown, where, as you can see, that's not quite LS. Unfortunately, due to some technical difficulties and LS's brain being too big for these monitors, we were unable to get him slotted in time to continue the countdown. But I did want to shout him out regardless because LS has been co-streaming the LCS all season long, and you can check him out at twitch.tv/IMLS. So make sure you check him out for all of his big brain analysis on everything when it comes to 100 Thieves versus Cloud9. He was going to do some talking about some of the drafting, particularly on the 100 Thieves side of things coming into the series. I'm sure he'll be able to have that discussion over on his channel. So go check that out as we continue the discussion ourselves on this 100 Thieves squad. And Alorm, I want to come to you first because this team has been a bit of a conundrum for us. They started so hot. We're in the conversation for top team right out the gate. Had a bit of a fizzle in mid-split, quick roster change to try and, change or fix some of the issues. And still we've waffled, really, on ultimately how well they'll be able to compete here in the postseason.
Yeah, so it seemed like from the start, 100 Thieves were in contention for potentially the first place team. A lot of people thought that from the lock-in, mainly because their early game was so good, they were getting leads every single game from their side lane plays with the Monte. He would consistently roam down on picks like the Twisted Fate and get off perfect dives that would go well for 100 Thieves every single time. And they did it every single game. Game after game, they kind of picked the same comp, but they kept getting the early leads, so they kept doing it. So the question is, as 100 Thieves kind of fall off toward the end of the split, is it that they've gotten worse in the style, that they're just kind of this one-trick pony kind of team? They have one style they can play, or are the other teams getting better and they've adapted to the 100 Thieves style? And if that's the case, as the other teams get better and 100 Thieves don't switch up their style or don't get better at other styles of play, it's going to be that much easier to play against them and that much easier to draft against them.
I think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B with the playstyle thing. I mean, you saw that replay. That was actually from last week's game against TL, which is, the style that they had dominated play-ins with did not work at all, and it hasn't worked for most of the regular season. Their dives either went wrong or they just forced people off waves. They couldn't actually convert it into kills, and that's been the struggle for this team, is finding playmaking. And I think that's what I think one of the big changes was targeted at with bringing Ryoma in, was the Demonte plays weren't working anymore, and they wanted to find another option.
Yeah, my biggest issue with that style that worked in lock-in tournament and a little bit in week 1 is the fact not only did the meta change, so you're now playing a lot more of a slower pace game. You're playing for jungle, so the jungle clearing out is really important. But also, as the split goes on, people are going to be more prepared for dives like these. The bot lane is going to be better prepared to call for attention. Jungle to either hover for them or TPs to be ready, or even if they can't get that attention or help, they'll back away. So the Team Liquid example that you're talking about, Team Liquid just thrived off that, because even though FBI and Huhi got that advantage, it was the jungler, it was Santorin, that was clearing more camps than them at the exact same time, and then still being able to get the top lane dive for it. So Closer was behind, top lane was behind, and that seems to be the consistent trend for 100 Thieves, is that they put in a lot of resources towards their bot lane so FBI can carry, but at the end of the day, it's going to be the top side of the map and the jungle mostly that gets a lead because of it.
Okay, and so I want to talk about Someday, because a lot of people would agree that he's kind of had a pretty lackluster split. We haven't seen the Someday we've seen in the previous split, and we can see just based on the stats, the KDA is down, damage per minute. The only thing he's a little bit better on is CS difference at 15, and that's pretty much negligible. And we can say a lot of that is probably coming from the jungle proximity toward his lane. He is in dead last this split for Closer coming to top lane in terms of every other team. So even though that's the case, he is still picking things that are primarily supposed to be played top side or strong side. He is playing Renekton for a third of the games of split. He's played 6 of it. He plays a lot of Aatrox, which could be played on weak side, but is mostly a strong side pick. He's played a lot of Narb. I think the only 2 picks he's played that aren't considered strong side picks is the Shin and the Gragas. So if you are primarily playing away from Someday, I'm not really understanding why he's still picking such strong side picks, but they're playing away from him. So maybe that is a reason why Someday has seemed to have fallen off so far.
Yeah, that's my thing, is that I kind of expected that 100 Thieves were going to be a bot lane focused team. When people were really excited to see Someday on carries, I was like, well, this team wants to play towards FBI. I think that's understandable. I think they should just be drafting for it. So when I see, I think Gnar is a fine pick and counter pick. I think Gnar is something that if you want to blind pick it, you need bans for it, so you don't go into an Aurelia Jace. Like, there are a lot of picks that just really suck for Gnar if he's gonna be pretty much on an island. But this team essentially puts him on that a lot of the time. So I think if we're talking about improvements in drafts, I would either want him to be playing more of a solid tank that's harder to dive. Gragas, I thought, was great if he's being put in these situations. Like Sion, Malphite, whenever those... I was about to say Malphite, but I know Alarm's his ear's going to perk up when I say something like that. But whenever, like, basically pick for those situations if this is how you want to play the game, or cover him on those dives so basically you're not putting him on an island where he's just going to die constantly if you're just going to play bot side.
All right, now clock's ticking before we get the game started, and so I do want to move away from 100 Thieves stylistically and more into the matchup itself. We saw in the commercial break a quick oversimplified on Closer, and it's very clear that he knows he's got his work cut out for him, not just in the season, but here in the matchup against Blabber today. So I actually want to take a look at a number of the other matchups across the Rift that might play a big role in how this one breaks down. Let's start in the mid lane, so right back to you, Raz. I know we were talking a lot about champion pools and the development of the mid lane meta with yesterday's series. How do you see today's mid lane matchup playing out?
It's going to be rough for Ioma because not only did he come into the team later on in the split, but of course Perkz is stronger mechanically. He's definitely had time to work with Blabber. For me, this is going to be heavily skewed towards Perkz, but I think something that 100 Thieves fans should be really happy with is, even though Ryoma's coming in later on, he's had some good performances on a whole slew of picks. So I know yesterday I was talking about those Everfrost champions like the Sylas and all that. He's being able to bring that, and I'm expecting that to be the case. I think, Ryoma is going to get a little bit of love, especially going up against Perkz. I don't expect him to be thrown into the wolves without much jungle attention. And now with more time to prepare for the playoffs, I think this is, he's best set up for success here.
All right, Mark, over to you for the bot lane. As mid lane, I think most people expect Perkz to come out ahead. This one, to me, feels a little bit more contentious.
I would say this is maybe the only lane you could argue that 100 Thieves have an advantage in. I would make that argument, and I think FBI is incredible, and he he has a ton of Senna games, which really skews his stats. So you kind of have to throw some of them out or remove the Senna games. And when you do that, he is tops in CSDs, tops in 4%. He's tops in goal differential, XP differential. They crush bot lane. In team fights, he's amazing. He also leads the league in damage per minute, as we just saw in the stats earlier. Like, he is such a stud for this team. The only rub against him a little bit is that they have had some moments of forgetting where the opponent is, some TPs behind them, some misplays, but that's true for almost everyone. And he is really the workhorse for this team. So if they're going to find a win, it's going to be because he's able to get the best of the C9 bot lane.
And that's you mentioned something there, Marks, which is the amount of attention that he gets and a lot of the resources that he gets on that bottom side of the map. And so for me, I think Sven is a lot more balanced out, that Blabber can play towards mid, top. Sure, there's still a lot of jungle proximity towards the bot lane, but Vulcan actually works with Blabber a lot more and is not with Sven as much. He's actually, the dual proximity with Vulcan and Sven is incredibly low. So, like, that's where I'm seeing Sven to be able to play bot side on his own with less resources and still actually output really great numbers, and also in worse matchups at times. I think he's picking for comp a lot of the times in his games. Sometimes he's picking Kai'Sa, and you know what? Raze is coming in with a Draven, and that's what you're going to have to deal with, and I think he's playing well accordingly.
All right, from the bot lane to the top, Alorm, I want a quick hit on Someday versus Fudge, especially considering the fact that we're always questioning who's going to get strong side, who's going to get weak side in any given matchup.
Well, if history repeats itself, both of these players will be kind of playing the weak side in this series because both of them have pretty low jungle proximity. Fudge with a little bit more. We do see Blabber come to his lane every now and then when the gank is pretty free, like we saw some of those Camille like TP games. That being said, it seems like when we're comparing weak side to weak side, Fudge is just doing so much better. Someday right now is number 2 for most deaths on the league for top laners and most deaths for the percent of team share. So, and Fudge is just all the way at the bottom. So it's really just a battle of weak side and who survives better. And I think a lot of that does line up to C9 knows what they want to do with their comp more, while Someday is still kind of stuck playing these strong side top laners on the weak side. So I don't predict that there will be a lot of action in the top lane if history repeats itself. And I think the only way that'll change is if 100 Thieves stylistically change and start playing back toward the top side.
All right, well, the teams are just about ready to head into Champions Select, so we've got one last thing to take a look at before we throw it over to the casters. That's the Samsung SSD Fast 5. It's going to look a little different this time around as we are focusing in on the matchup at hand. So you will see, of course, the player for each team in their role of 100 Thieves and Cloud9 against the LCS average as well. A couple things that jump out to me, curious if this means anything to you guys. Of course, the mythic item level reached by the mid laner, I think that does speak to a degree to the discrepancy between mid laners that we'll see here today. A decent amount of time between both Perks and Ryoma hitting that mark, Raz.
Yeah, I think that's relevant. For me, the one thing I also want to cling to is jungle as well, because for both teams, ideally, they want to play towards their jungler, and Closer a lot of the times is playing towards fast, clear junglers as well. I think him being below, just a little bit below LCS average goes back to the point that I'm making, where if they're looking for dives or if they're looking for a play to happen, Closer just falls behind in experience at times, and I think that's something that they should optimize. That's one of my biggest criticisms of, you know, some of the games that I've been seeing from 100 Thieves is this optimization for Closer. He's your superstar jungler. He is an incredible performer. So I think if he's on a Hecarim or an Udyr, just play for him more.
All right, well, I know everybody's hungry for the games and the teams already. We do have your predictions on record, so we'll make sure to re-hit those at the end of game number 1 to see where you guys stand on the series overall. But for now, it's time to head over to Freak and Azael to get ourselves into 100 Thieves versus Cloud9.